If you're living on a fixed income, watching every dollar, and depending on benefits to arrive on time, small rule changes can feel like big waves. I know you worry about missing a deadline, having a payment delayed, or losing benefits because of something you didn't know about. That's exactly why we're talking today. A quiet change in how the Postal Service handles postmarks can affect taxes, Social Security and Medicare appeals, Medicaid and SNAP paperwork, and even your ballot in an election. It's not meant to scare you. It's meant to keep you one step ahead so you don't get caught by surprise. Here's the heart of it. For years, most people believed that if you dropped a letter in the blue box or handed it to a clerk before the deadline, the postmark would show that same date. That date was your proof. Agencies, courts, the IRS, and election offices treated it as the official record that you mailed something on time. But recently, the Postal Service clarified something that's always been technically true, but not obvious to the public. The postmark date now follows the date your mail is first processed at a postal facility, not necessarily the date you dropped it in the box or handed it to a window clerk. Even a one-day difference can matter, and that small detail can ripple through several parts of your life at once. Let's slow this down, because understanding the rhythm of the mail now will save you stress later. Imagine it's Monday afternoon, and you place your tax return or your Medicare appeal into the blue box near your house. You've met the deadline in your mind. You did your part. But your local office might only send outgoing mail to the big regional processing center once each morning. If you miss that morning dispatch, your letter could sit until the next day. The postmark is applied when the mail is processed at that large facility, not when it's placed in the box. So your envelope could be postmarked Tuesday. And in the eyes of the agency you're dealing with, Tuesday is what counts. That difference may seem tiny, but if the deadline was Monday, a Tuesday postmark can create problems. Why is this happening now? The Postal Service is operating differently than it did years ago. Much of the mail handling has been consolidated. Many local post offices no longer cancel letters with the same-day date at the counter. Instead, mail is transported to big processing and distribution centers where machines apply the postmark. There are fewer daily trips from local offices to those centers. In many places, what used to be 2 dispatches per day is now 1, often in the morning. If you drop something off late in the day, on the weekend, or right before a holiday, it can sit. Some post offices are quite far from their assigned processing center, so mail can travel hours before it's even ready to be postmarked. The Postal Service has explained that this is not a new rule so much as a clarification, but for you and me, the practical reality is that the old assumption no longer works. Drop-off time and postmark time are not always the same. Now, I want you to hear this part clearly. There is nothing wrong with you if you didn't know this. Most of us grew up trusting the postmark as automatic proof that matched the day we mailed something. The system quietly shifted, and now you're being asked to adapt. The good news is, once you understand the new rhythm, you have several options to protect yourself. Before we get there, though, let's talk about where this really matters in daily life, starting with taxes, because a one-day slip with the postmark can lead to penalties if you owe. With the IRS, the rule has long been simple. If your return is postmarked by the deadline, usually April 15th, your filing is on time. If a check or a quarterly estimated payment is postmarked by the due date, it's timely. But if you mail on the last day and it isn't processed until the next day, the postmark shifts by a day. If you owe taxes, that one day can trigger penalties. The late filing penalty is generally 5% of the unpaid tax for each month or part of a month that the return is late, up to a maximum of 25%. There's also a late payment penalty and interest that accrues daily. It's the kind of charge that feels unfair when you did everything you thought was right. Even charitable donations can be affected. If you mail a donation on December 31, but the postmark shows January 2nd, that deduction may count for the next tax year. I know some people shrug and say everyone files online now. In reality, millions still file by mail each year. Many older Americans prefer paper because it feels more tangible, safer, and less confusing than a computer screen. There's nothing wrong with that, but it does mean you need to build in more time. If you still file on paper, treat the last day scramble as a risk. Mail days earlier than you used to. If that's not possible, consider walking inside the post office and asking for a hand-applied postmark at the retail counter. That hand stamp is free, it's clear, and it gives you the date assurance you need. You can also use certified mail for important filings. That creates a paper trail with a receipt. If you prefer not to go in person, consider the IRS-approved private delivery services for last-minute filings. If you do owe taxes and you're right up against the deadline, electronic payment options are worth knowing. IRS Direct Pay from your bank account and the IRS's e-file system give instant confirmation. If you miss a deadline by a day and later receive a penalty, you still have rights. Ask the IRS about penalty relief, including first-time abatement if you've been compliant in recent years, or reasonable cause if you can show you did everything you reasonably could, including evidence that you mailed on time and the delay was outside your control. Keep the envelope, keep the USPS receipt, keep any documentation that shows when you attempted to file. Now let's talk about Social Security and Medicare, because this change can affect appeals and forms in ways that hit very close to home. Social Security often sets strict deadlines. If you're appealing a decision, requesting reconsideration, or submitting evidence, the letter you receive will usually give you a number of days to respond. Traditionally, if your envelope was postmarked by the due date, your filing was considered timely. With the postmark arriving a day late because processing happened the next morning, an appeal that you thought was on time could be marked late. I don't say that to alarm you. I say it so you have the tools to avoid that mistake. If you can, mail earlier than you used to. If you're close to the deadline, go to the counter and ask for a hand-applied postmark or a receipt showing the date. Certified mail or a certificate of mailing can be a lifesaver. Keep copies of everything you send and take a photo of the envelope with the date stamped on the receipt. If you do end up with a late postmark through no fault of your own, don't give up. Social Security has a concept called good cause for late filing. If you can show a reasonable reason, illness, misdirected mail, records that were hard to obtain, or a delay caused by the mailing process, you can ask them to accept your filing even though it's late. Be specific. Explain that you mailed on a certain date and include any proof from USPS. It won't fix everything automatically, but it's a right you have, and many people don't know to ask. Medicare has deadlines too, for appeals and for certain types of coverage decisions. If you're appealing a Medicare decision, your notice will tell you how many days you have at each stage. The first level is usually a request for redetermination, and there are strict timelines after you receive your Medicare summary notice. Again, a mailed appeal that slips by 1 day on the postmark could be an issue. The same common sense protections help here. Mail early when possible. If you're close to the edge, walk it into the post office and get a hand stamp or use certified mail. Keep proof of the date. If something does go late, Medicare also allows for good cause in some circumstances. You can explain the situation and include your proof, asking them to accept it. I also want to mention Medicaid and SNAP, because for many households, those programs are the difference between stability and crisis. States set their own processes and timelines for Medicaid and SNAP recertifications, reporting changes, and appeals. Very often, those timelines are counted from the date of the notice you received, and some states consider a filing timely if it's postmarked by the due date. With the way postmarks now work, a last-day mailing could be dated the next day. The safest path is to build in time, use a hand-applied postmark for anything time-sensitive, or deliver forms in person when that's available. Many states also have online portals. If you're not comfortable using them, it's okay to ask for help. A trusted family member, a local library, or a senior center can often help you create an account and submit forms. Keep copies of everything. If you ever get a notice saying your recertification arrived late, call right away. Explain and ask if they can accept your filing or schedule an interview. If you disagree with the decision, you have the right to request a fair hearing. Those deadlines are real, but they are also your protection. If you face a late mark that you don't think is fair, the hearing process is there to give you a voice. Let's pause for a moment on real-life timing, because weekends and holidays can quietly trip you up. If you mail something on a Friday afternoon and your local office already sent the day's dispatch to the processing center that morning, your letter may not get processed until Monday, or even Tuesday after a holiday weekend. If the deadline was Friday, that's a problem. If you mail on Saturday from a blue box with no pickup until Monday morning, the processing date could be Monday or Tuesday. If you live far from a processing center, the trip adds a delay. None of that is your fault. It's simply how the system moves now. You can use that knowledge to protect yourself by adjusting when and how you mail time-sensitive documents. This brings us to voting by mail. Emotions run high around elections, but the guidance here is simple and practical. In many states, a ballot can be counted even if it arrives after Election Day, as long as it's postmarked by Election Day. The challenge is exactly what we've been talking about. If you drop your ballot into the mailbox on Election Day afternoon and your mail isn't processed until the next day, the postmark can be too late for those states. This isn't about politics, it's about timing. State election officials in places that rely heavily on mail-in voting have warned voters to mail early. If you prefer to vote by mail, plan to send your ballots several days before the deadline. If you're close to Election Day and still have your ballot, consider using an official drop box or bringing it to your local election office or polling place if your state allows that. Many states let you track your ballot to see when it's received and accepted. If you're caring for a spouse or a parent and handling their ballot, the same rules apply. Get it in early or use a drop-off option. The goal is making sure your voice is counted.
Now, let's circle back to what you can do, calmly and step by step, to stay ahead of this change. First, start thinking of last day mailings as risky for anything that can affect your money, your health coverage, or your rights. Build in a buffer of several days. Weekends and holidays deserve extra space. If you can, try to mail early in the week and early in the day. Look at the blue mailbox you use. It will have a posted last collection time. If you drop something in after that time, it won't start moving until the next pickup, which could be the next day. If it's important, skip the box and go inside the post office during business hours. Second, when the date really matters, ask for a hand-applied postmark at the counter. It's sometimes called a round date stamp. It's free. Ask the clerk to stamp your envelope and, if possible, stamp a receipt so you have something on paper. If you prefer even more proof, certified mail gives you a receipt and tracking, and you can add a return receipt so you know when it's delivered. For some documents, a simple certificate of mailing is enough and costs less than certified. That little slip can save you hours of headaches later if someone questions when you mailed something. Third, consider electronic options when you're comfortable and the agency allows it. For taxes, filing electronically and paying electronically gives you a time-stamped confirmation on the date you submit. For Social Security, some forms and appeals can be submitted online through an account. For Medicare, some appeals and plan communications can be handled electronically, depending on the issue. For Medicaid and SNAP, many states have online portals for applications, recertifications, and reporting changes. If you're not tech-savvy, it's okay. You can ask a trusted family member to help. Your local library, senior center, or community organization often has someone who can walk you through it once so you feel more confident. Once you do it, it's less intimidating.
Fourth, keep a simple paper trail. This doesn't need to be fancy. A folder with copies of what you mailed, the date you mailed it, and any USPS receipts is enough. If you can, take a quick photo of the envelope and the receipt with the date. If anyone questions the timing later, you have something to point to. This habit is especially helpful for appeals, tax payments, and anything that might lead to a penalty or a denial if it's late. Fifth, check addresses carefully. Government agencies often use specific addresses for different types of mail. Using the address on the notice you received reduces the chance of a delay. If the notice has a barcode or a special envelope, use it. If you aren't sure, call and confirm. It's better to spend 5 minutes on the phone than to have mail bounce around and arrive late. Let's also talk about what to do if something still goes wrong. Even when you do everything right, life happens. If you get a letter saying your tax return was late by a day and you owe a penalty, call or write back and ask about penalty relief. If you have a strong track record, first-time abatement may apply. If you can show that circumstances outside your control caused the delay, you can ask for reasonable cause relief. Document what you did and include your USPS proof. If you receive a notice from Social Security or Medicare that your appeal was late, respond quickly. Request that they accept it based on good cause. Explain that you mailed by the deadline, describe how and when you mailed it, and include your proof. If you can, get help from someone who knows the system, like a local benefits counselor or an advocate. For Medicare, many communities have state health insurance assistance program counselors who provide free guidance. If you're dealing with Medicare or SNAP and you get a notice that your recertification was late or your case closed, call the office right away. Many states have rules that allow reopening a case if you turn in the paperwork within a short period after closure. Ask to speak with a supervisor if needed, and keep notes on who you talked to and when. For elections, if your ballot was rejected due to a late postmark, Check whether your state has a way to cure issues. Not all states allow curing for late postmarks, but some let you fix missing signatures or signature mismatches within a short window. If you voted by mail in one election and ran into problems, consider mailing earlier next time, using a drop box if your state offers it, or voting early in person to remove the mailing variable altogether. I also want to acknowledge how frustrating this all feels. For decades, the postmark was one of those quiet systems that worked in the background. You didn't have to think about it. You could trust it. Now, the responsibility shifts a little more onto you. I don't say that to make you anxious. I say it because once you know the new rule of the road, you can adjust with confidence. A few small habits protect your money, your benefits, and your voice.
As you plan ahead, think about your calendar for the year. Tax deadlines, quarterly estimated tax payments if you make them, Medicare appeals if a claim gets denied, Social Security paperwork if they ask for more information, Medicaid and SNAP recertifications, local elections, and the general election. For each of those, give yourself breathing room. A simple note on your calendar a week before the due date can make a world of difference. If you help a spouse or a parent with their paperwork, add their dates too. If you care for someone with health issues, that buffer can prevent a gap in coverage. Let me leave you with a simple picture to keep in mind. The date you drop something in the mail and the date it gets postmarked are not guaranteed to be the same anymore. The postmark now reflects the date your mail is processed at a regional facility. That can be a day later, and that day can matter. You are not powerless in this. You can mail earlier. You can walk inside and ask for a hand stamp. You can use certified mail or a certificate of mailing for an inexpensive proof. You can file taxes electronically when it's right for you. You can keep a small folder of receipts and copies. You can ask for relief if a deadline is missed for reasons outside your control. You can vote by mail early or use drop-off options to be sure your ballot counts. Every one of those steps reduces uncertainty. I know you're balancing a lot. You're watching the cost of groceries and medications. You're tracking Social Security deposits. You're managing forms that seem to change every year. You don't need more stress. My goal is to explain these shifts so you don't feel blindsided. You deserve clear information, steady guidance, and practical steps that fit your everyday life. This postmark clarification may be quiet, but its effects are loud if you don't see it coming. Now you see it. Now you can act.
Take a moment today to check the last pickup time on the blue mailbox you use. Put reminders on your calendar before key deadlines. If you have something time-sensitive ready to send this week, consider going to the counter and asking for that hand-applied postmark so you have peace of mind. If you know someone who mails forms right at the deadline because that's what they've always done, share this information. It's a small favor that can save them from penalties or a gap in coverage. One last word of reassurance. Agencies know that life is messy. When you show good faith and provide proof, they often have ways to help. The IRS can grant penalty relief. Social Security and Medicare can accept late appeals for good cause. State agencies can reopen benefits or schedule a hearing. You are allowed to ask for help, to appeal, and to make your case. Keep your receipts, stay calm, and use your rights. This information is general, and rules can vary by state and by program. It isn't legal, tax, or financial advice. If you have a complex situation, consider talking with a qualified professional or contacting the agency directly. But don't let that stop you from taking the common-sense steps that protect you today. Mail early when you can. Ask for a hand-applied postmark when timing matters. Keep proof. And remember that understanding the rules is the best way to keep your benefits secure and your stress low. You are not alone in this. I'm here to help you decode these changes so you can make clear decisions and feel steady, even when the systems around you shift.